Today in my continuing line of Nintendo Fanboy reviews Sega Genesis games, I'll be reviewing Gunstar Heroes. It released on September 10th, 1993. The game itself is reminiscent to Contra. The dev team that worked on Gunstar Heroes did originally work at Konami. They ended up quitting Konami and took their work and ideas for Gunstar Heroes to their newly formed company Treasure, and thus Gunstar Heroes was its debut title. Treasure then released a number of great titles, garnering a positive reputation, especially during their releases in the 16-bit gaming era. Beyond the buzz here and there I've heard online regarding Gunstar Heroes, I'd never really heard of it, nor had I played it before. Funny enough, I own the Game Boy Advance sequel, Gunstar Super Heroes, but never played that either. I think I got it for Christmas one year when it first came out after October 2005, but just never really got around to playing it. As mentioned earlier, the Contra games from Konami are probably the most comparable to this on Nintendo systems. This especially is the case for Contra 3, the Alien Wars on the SNES. Both games have varied environments with a few high-speed areas, but Gunstar Heroes plays a lot more fairly than the Contra series overall. One hit and you're dead, but with limited lives in Contra, whereas the heroes in Gunstar have hit points, called Vitality in the game. But if that goes to zero, it's game over. While not originally released on a Nintendo system, the Metal Slug series is also very similar to how Gunstar Heroes' overall gameplay runs as well. Regarding the gameplay, the player moves their character with the control pad, fires their weapon with B, and jumps with C. Players can select one of 4 weapons to begin the game with, as well as whether or not they want to remain stationary when firing, or if they want to be able to move while firing. The former allows for precision, but limited mobility, the latter the opposite. During the course of stage exploration, players can find these 4 weapons and switch between them using the A button, holding onto 2 weapons at a time. The cool thing is, there's a mode that combines both weapons at the same time, using the A button. This can result in some pretty cool combinations, though I just combined both flamethrower weapon slots to make a larger flame that made quick work of enemies and bosses. The player's moveset is not just limited to jump and fire like a Contra game. The game also allows the player to grapple enemies and throw them in a desired direction with the B button, should they approach the player. They could also slide on the ground a la Mega Man by hitting down and C. There's also a super slide ability by moving the control pad back to down to right, but I couldn't execute this all the time like I would have liked. Still, this is an extremely robust moveset available to the player, reminiscent to the large moveset I used in Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master on the Sega Genesis. One of the things with these games with such robust movesets is that they'll often require the player to use them all, especially in older games that had them available, and Gunstar Heroes is no exception, as enemies come at players in endless waves, as well as a multitude of differing environments and challenges requiring a keen eye and quick reflexes. There is some platforming, although nothing challenge-wise to even a Mario game. While there are pitfalls, should the player fall down one, they'll reappear just with 20 less vitality. As mentioned earlier, should the player let their health drain to 0, it's game over, though thankfully continuing is allowed. A good majority of the game is played fighting mini-bosses and primary end-of-stage bosses. When they appear, the boss's vitality number appears as well. When the players reduce this number to 0, the boss is defeated. Many of the bosses, especially the mini ones, are really easy, but there are some really unique looking bosses that are a ton of fun to fight. The game begins with the player selecting one of 4 stages, trying to recover gems from an empire, trying to revive a god or something. Honestly, I wasn't worried about the story here, and that's okay. The US got one story about a different planet trying to stop an android being revived, yet Japan got a different story about an ancient civilization creating a death droid that was sealed away later, which an empire is trying to revive because of misinterpreting an old legend. Either way, once completed with all 4 stages, there are only 3 more stages left, and it kind of shows that this is a rather short game. The gameplay itself is reminiscent to Sega's overall arcade past, I feel. It makes sense the game would be tough as nails, but also fairly short. One special mention I have to make is the 6th stage. Designed like a Gradius or R-type like shoot 'em up, And while shooting in this stage took some getting used to, the overall level was a ton of fun. I felt that graphically, the sprites are detailed with a more cartoony than anime look, with enemy sprites being quite expressive, especially the Empire's main bosses. The environments themselves are quite detailed and also sport a wide variety. This includes speeding down the pyramid staircase in the first stage, the colorful board game in the fourth stage, and the bosses in the sixth stage, especially the Vector Man-like one. There was also very little slowdown at all during my gameplay, which I thought was amazing since there were often so many damn enemy sprites on the screen at one time. During some of the gameplay I captured here, playing with my wife, it looks like my character's flamethrower didn't show at all, and I actually think this is something with the capture card on my computer, as on our TV we weren't missing anything at all. Great sound effects go along with the action too, providing satisfying noises for enemies being defeated as well as weapons firing. The player's characters yelp when they take damage, which I actually found to be quite helpful, as the gameplay itself sometimes gets so crazy that it'd be hard to tell when this would happen otherwise. The music was composed by Norio Hanzawa, and honestly, it wasn't anything that really caught my ear at all. Now don't get me wrong, the music itself was fine and serviceable, but it just wasn't anything that was really catchy, or I found myself humming during gameplay or afterwards. I found it to sound more mechanical than other games' soundtracks, perhaps due to being tied to the gameplay being more tied to a technologically heavy society. Although Thunder Force 4 for the Sega Genesis was thematically like this, I also found the soundtrack to Gangnam Style, or Gunstar Heroes, to be one of the more tinier ones. I know this is the norm for the Sega Genesis overall with its audio, but for some reason I felt like this game really leaned more into this. Maybe my mind will change the more I hear the music as I keep playing it, but after 3 playthroughs, I'm still not in love with it. Overall, I'm going to be giving Gunstar Heroes 8.5 out of 10 SNES controllers. The game's weak point is its music, and this isn't all that weak to begin with. The game itself looks great and is quite colorful for the Genesis color palette. It runs fantastic and is just an overall blast to play. There's barely any slowdown, especially when being played with 2 players at once, and there is a lot of replay value to be had going through the game in the harder difficulty modes, of which it sports 4 total to select. Gunstar Heroes is available on the NSO Expansion Pak on the Nintendo Switch, the first Sega Genesis mini console from Sega, and was on the Nintendo 3DS store as a 3DS classic. Now, have you played Gunstar Heroes before, its sequel, or any of its games? After hearing my review and or seeing gameplay of it here, are you interested in trying it out? If you haven't, let me know in the comments section below. Please like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications when more videos go live. Thanks for watching and have a great day.